Well, the problem I've got generally about the whole austerity conversation is that when Theresa May got up and made her speech in Conservative Party conference, everybody thought reasonably well received. She didn't do anything particularly brilliant, but she was, she did look as if she was in more control of the economy than she was last year, and in fact in more control of the stage than she was last year as well. But she said austerity's over, it has worked, and now we have we can see our way clear to having a brilliant economy. I didn't understand any of that because, one, I've never quite understood what austerity was. I've never quite understood what measures were taken which actually changed anything. And three, finally, I don't understand what now has changed. I don't see any change whatsoever.
But I think you would only have experienced the effects of austerity if the cuts that were made, which are beyond doubt, there were massive cuts there were huge cuts to public services and public service budgets.
But I use public services. I didn't notice any.
Not in the way that, I mean, some examples. Some councils had their budgets cut by, well, the average council had its budget cut by a fifth, which is very significant. And some had their budgets cut by half.
Yes.
Police spending down 17%, roads down a quarter, libraries a third, courts a third, prisons a fifth. Those are very, very big cuts. But none of those cuts, apart from potholes, which you have been banging on about, none of those would really impact you.
Right. Well, let me find out what exactly has been going on. Richard Murphy is political economist and director of Tax Research UK. I'm just puzzled as to why austerity was brought in, and if it was brought in the way that people describe, did it really work, and why can we now give it up? Richard, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning.
I'm not trying to be deliberately obtuse here. I honestly, genuinely don't understand what austerity was. I don't really understand what it's achieved, and if it did achieve something, what is it exactly that it did achieve?
Well, austerity was a deliberate attempt to squeeze the size of government, and it, in that sense, has worked. Government is smaller than it would have been. If we look at the size of the UK's spend by government in proportion to what is spent elsewhere in Europe, for example, similar types of country, of the 28 member states, we are 20th. We spend 33% of our total national income on government services, and there are many that spend more than 40%. We are down with the likes of, Croatia, Portugal and Romania.
Doesn't sound terribly austere to me, though, Richard, to spend over, nearly a third of your income on government.
Well, actually, I think you're completely wrong. I think we should spend vastly more on government because it's what people want.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Why would you want to give the government any money at all?
Can I have a chance? You've invited me on.
Don't worry, you'll be here for a long time, Richard. You'll have plenty of time to speak.
Okay,
don't get snitty already. We're only in 2 minutes.
Can I answer them?
Yes, please.
Right. Austerity was a deliberate squeeze on government spending. Who have suffered? The poorest councils in the country. The council that has suffered the most is Blackpool. People in Blackpool have seen a massive cut in services. Who in society have suffered the most? The disabled have suffered the most. They have seen massive cuts in their support. So they now are very often simply left at home, unable to do anything.
So when the government...
Who also have suffered those with mental health issues because they simply don't get the support they now require. Who else? People who suffer crime because we simply don't have any police anymore to actually deal with most crimes. We've heard that vast numbers of crimes are now never investigated.
Yeah, but you're just trusting... Richard, with respect to you, I'm just going to interrupt you. Richard, would you mind if I just interrupt you? Because we're having a conversation here. It's not just a one-way monologue, okay? Now, you are trotting out all of the things that everybody trots out about how austerity has affected all sorts of people. But I don't really see how that, one, can be then described as working, or two, where is the benefit that we've got? Because we've still borrowed... Hang on. Are you going to let me finish, Richard?
Yeah.
I mean, the point is that we have borrowed massively during this period of austerity, which tells me that actually we've got ourselves into more debt as a government. So the idea of saving any money seems ridiculous.
Well, it didn't work. It's absolutely blatant. It was the wrong policy. Why didn't it work? Because, in fact, let's be quite clear about it, government spending is someone else's income. That is a fact.
Yeah, the government has no money of its own.
Yes, it does. All money is the government's. You try and find a pound note which is not created by the government.
No. But, I mean, it's not generated by the government. The government doesn't generate any money.
Yes, it does. It creates all money. There is no money but government-created money.
No, I have to disagree.
A pound that is not created by the government.
Well, I have to disagree with you there, Richard.
Well, you're
because I'm not wrong, Richard. No, you are trotting out some kind of lefty agenda, which does not suit me at all.
Pure economic facts. This is what we teach students. This is what the bank.
That's what the problem is.
How money is created. money is only created by banks under government licence and by government spending. And the government has any amount of money it likes because it has its own bank and it can create whatever cash it likes. And the point is that if the government spends money, it puts people to work. And putting people to work actually creates wealth. The idea that only people who work for the private sector create wealth is a complete nonsense. If you don't believe that people working for the NHS create wealth, next time you turn up in A&E and ask to be treated, they'll put you at the back of the queue and leave you there for as long as you like.
That's what happens anyway.
No, you're not. The point is they create value.
But Richard, getting back to
value, Richard, is not the same as money, is it? You know that as well as I do.
Richard, I would like to bring you back to the Mike's central question, which is what did austerity do and has it worked? And you've said it's failed miserably, but actually the coalition government that first brought in austerity as a result of the huge financial crisis caused by the banks and the bank bailouts, faced with massive debt and deficit. As far as the deficit is concerned, it has worked. It's been a remarkable achievement that the deficit has come down as much as it has. Yes, overall debt is still stubbornly sticking at just below 2 trillion, but deficit is massively down.
Well, deficit is massively down, but let's look at the consequence of deficit being down. We now have the lowest growth in Europe. We are actually the poor nation of Europe, the worst off growth. Why is that? Because our government has refused to spend, and we need it to spend to keep people at work to stimulate growth.
Well, our growth hasn't been great, but our unemployment figures are great, and we have survived better than most countries in the recession.
Most of the growth in unemployment has been people who are now self-employed. We have seen
There's nothing wrong with being self-employed, though, is there, Richard?
I've been self-employed most of my life.
There you go.
Right. But that point is most of those people are actually earning less than minimum wage now. And that is...
Well, then they won't be paying any tax into the exchequer, will they?
Yeah, no, that's the whole problem, you see, that we actually have got a low-growth, low-wage economy that doesn't function. If we had an economy where the government invested in education, in training, in creating investment opportunities, in creating new employment opportunities, we would have high growth, people earning more, people paying more tax, people able, therefore, to support the economy better, and that would have been the consequence, and that's what the government...
I take it you're not in favour, Richard, of a sort of an economy which has a small government involvement in it, which allows people to spend more of their own money, which also creates an awful lot of growth and a lot of opportunity as well. An awful lot of small businesses are suffering under a Tory government, bizarrely. Well, no, hang on, Richard, you've had your turn, I'm going to have mine. The point about small businesses create most of the work in this country, right? Most of the people are employed by small businesses. Small businesses are being strangled by red tape. They're having their VAT going up. They're having all sorts of problems with taxation, and the government's collecting more and more money off them and wasting more and more of it. So that's why we are stagnating, not because we're not collecting enough tax, but because we're collecting too much.
No, you're simply wrong there.
No, I'm not wrong. That's my opinion, Richard.
OK, it's your opinion. But I'll tell you, because I happen to be a professor of economics, true.
Well, very good for you.
But I'm also a chartered accountant, and I have been senior partner of a firm of chartered accountants, and I've been a director of many trading companies.
Well, I'm astonished then, that you think that the way forward is to give the government more of your money.
Well, I know that as a person who ran real businesses and is still a director of real companies, I could never have done it without the support of the state, because I needed the state to train people so that they would turn up so that they could do the job. I needed the state to support those people so that they were healthy, so they could come to work in the morning and didn't have to worry about how they were going to meet their health bills. I knew that I needed the state to provide those people with childcare so that they could come to work and decent education so that their children were cared for during the day. I know I needed the infrastructure that the state paid for.
How much money did the state give you, Richard?
Hang on, I needed regulation to make sure there was a level playing field.
Are you sure you're an accountant?
I needed that regulation to make sure it was safe to go and buy a coffee from a coffee shop, because without regulation it would not be safe to buy coffee from a coffee shop, because I wouldn't know that they'd done their job properly.
You're joking. You are joking now, aren't you?
No, I am.
You're doing a parody show now, Richard. This is ridiculous. What on earth are you talking about?
How we live. We have to trust, and the only reason we can...
I don't trust the government 1 inch, Richard, and anybody with any brains would agree with me.
If you don't trust somebody, how do you live in a society? I actually like people, want to trust people, want to coexist with people, want to get on with them, and you're saying you want to live in a little isolated bubble by yourself. I won't. Fine, go.
You're probably in favour of staying in the European Union as well, are you, Richard?
Sorry?
Are you in favour of staying in the European Union as well?
I'm in favour of staying in
Of course you are, yes. You tick every box that everybody ticks. I mean, it's ridiculous, Richard. How can you possibly argue in favour of this government, which is hopeless, even whether it's being run by the Tories or...
It's hopeless.
Oh, but you trust them to have your money and you want to give them more of it.
I do believe... No, I don't want this government to have more money.
Oh.
I'm actually not saying...
Which government would you like to have in charge?
I would like a government for which no party...
Would you like to see Jeremy Corbyn in power? Because he'd take even more of it.
Jeremy Corbyn, but I've actually also been deeply critical of Jeremy Corbyn, so let's be clear about that.
OK.
What I want is a government that would actually say, straightforwardly, we believe that if we spend money well and invest it wisely and we put it to use and create employment opportunities, this country will be better off. And if we tax fairly and make sure that everyone who owes their taxes pays it, we will create a level playing field in which competitive businesses can flourish in the UK, but we have not got that.
Well, let me give you a couple of examples of why this government should not be given any money. Frankly, one is called Crossrail and the other one is called HS2. That's just two that I've plucked out of the air. So why on earth, Richard, would you want to give them any more money? They're now saying that austerity is over, so therefore we're all going to be better off. However, they still want more money off us.
No, they should instead be building vast numbers of houses for young people who can't afford to buy their own, so we need social housing.
So we should give them all free houses, should we?
No, I'm not saying we should give them free houses. There's something called rent that they would be paying in exchange for that, but we need to actually build the housing because the private sector won't, so we have a crisis. We should be greening our economy. We should be ensuring that we become the world leader in tidal and wind power, which we could be. We should be actually ensuring that every house in the UK should be insulated so that we're not dependent on oil, so that our children have a chance of a future where the planet hasn't burned. We could be doing all those things, and they will require government pump priming money. And if we actually...
Yeah, but the point is, I mean, you made this...
has to take the lead.
You made this rather fatuous point about the government making money, which of course they do.
Make money.
Well, hang on, Richard. Let me speak, please. You said that the government makes all the money that exists in this country, which is a rather fatuous point, as you well know. It was all about printing. No, it was all about printing the money. Okay, everybody knows that the government prints the money. If you print money in your back garden, you're going to get arrested and charged with, counterfeiting.
The point. The government makes all the money.
Yes, no, the government produces and manufactures money. It doesn't actually make any. The only money it gets the only money it makes. Richard, are you going to let me speak? Because I've asked you to do that more than once and you haven't acceded to my request. I've let you speak, so please give me the courtesy of allowing me to make my argument. The point is this: you do not have any money if you're a government unless you tax people who make real money. Okay, that's true, isn't it?
No, it's not true. Let's look at a simple argument as to why that's not true. How were the banks bailed out? Do you know, £1 trillion was used to bail out the banks. It was simply created by the Bank of England.
Yeah, it wasn't actually real money, was it?
Yes, it was real money, totally real money. The same as quantitative easing was used to actually basically provide liquidity to the banks. Where did it come from? It was simply created by the government, £435 billion, and it's real money. So it's complete nonsense to say the government can't do this. What you're getting confused about is that you think that money is the same as value. And of course,
no, I don't actually. I've already said to you they're two completely different things. You said that teachers produce money, and I said value is not the same thing, Richard.
Hang on, you're saying that only the private sector can create value, and that the government doesn't.
That's not what I said at all. That's a complete misrepresentation of what I said.
You cannot say the government can't create money.
They can't create any money. They can only collect it.
Do you think that the NHS is worthless? I don't.
No, I didn't say it was, Richard.
Well, therefore, you're willing to pay for it because it's got work.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that education is worthwhile? If you do, you're willing to pay for it.
Yes, of course. It doesn't mean it generates any money, though, Richard.
Why not? It delivers money because you are willing to pay tax for it.
Well, I'm not really given the option, to be honest. If you came to me and said, would you like to pay taxes or not, I might say, no, I wouldn't, actually, because you're going to waste most of the money and give it all away to the wrong people.
Oh, hang on. Teachers and nurses and doctors, are they the wrong people?
No, they're not. But there are plenty of other people who get money. For example, the Indian nation gets money when they shouldn't because they've got their own space programme, and yet we give them millions and millions of pounds to do whatever they want with it.
And let me also be honest, if I look at any company I've ever gone into and who's ever asked me for advice, and a lot have, I've always been able to say to them, yes, a lot have. I'm dealing with one right now. In between, this conversation is taking place between talking to a private sector company.
Make sure you tell them to pay as much tax as they possibly can.
You have got your priorities wrong. You need to rethink what you're doing. Now, every single human right well-run organisation sometimes gets its priorities wrong, it doesn't mean you scrap the organisation. It means you change the priorities. You and I disagree on priorities. It does not mean government is a bad thing.
And it doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong, and it doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong either.
Yeah, but your logic is totally flawed, that you're saying government is a bad thing and we don't want to pay it. Government does create
You've
value.
just admitted to me that government doesn't spend its money very well, and yet you'd like to give them more.
Do that.
I think the logical problem here...
I said there.
The logical problem is yours, not mine, Richard.
The logical problem is that I said the government creates value, because it clearly does, because teachers, nurses, doctors, fire people, police, and everyone else create value. So do to local authority officers, so do to people who actually also provide mental health services, and so does it also create value to support the elderly, simply with pensions, and people who...
Yeah, but you've now changed your argument from money to value, so, I mean, you can't win on every single point, Richard. You have to admit they're both separate.
Of value, and they do involve the payment of money and the expenditure of money. And so your argument that the government can't create and deliver value is just wrong. I'm sorry, it's just factually so inept. It's just very hard to understand how anybody can believe that the NHS does not create money, because all those people who work in the NHS are paid and spend the money, and it's all done for public benefit, which we all appreciate.
Yes, but Richard, I'm afraid you're never going to learn the lesson of life, which is that money comes from people like me and people like you who pay income tax. Otherwise, there would be no money. There wouldn't be any, Richard. You know that as well as I do, unless you live in cloud cuckoo land up the top of a mountain.
The government spends the money it creates and then taxes it back. And if it spends it wisely to the limit of the capacity of the economy, we are all better off.
But Richard, just to interrupt you there, I think the most important word you just used is wisely. And what most of us know is that the government, on the whole, is so cumbersome that it doesn't spend wisely. I mean, just look at the NHS. You just mentioned it. Look at its
vastly inefficient organisation.
The computer system. It's wasted billions of pounds on that, and that's one of the reasons why people don't trust the government to spend wisely. Of course, in a utopian world, if the government did invest, which I think on the whole you and Mike are disagreeing over language.
Richard wishes he lived in the former Soviet Union, I think. That's
because if the government does spend wisely and invest wisely as an investment in education, but what I mean is more, chooses to spend its money on the correct things, which will have a good outcome for its money. So in other words, if you educate kids who then go on to earn very good money later,
and then pay more money back in, that's good.
That's a good investment.
That is good.
But what I'm saying is it doesn't work like that, very often, because the government is inefficient.
Can we just talk about why it's inefficient?
We've hardly got any time left, Richard, because you've been bleating on for too long about it.
The reason why the NHS is so inefficient is that the government imposed upon the NHS the most stupid structure, where it pretends that it's a whole series of independent businesses.
So you agree that the NHS is badly run?
Oh, I agree that...
So let's give them some more money then.
Appalling structure for political dogmatic reasons to pretend it's a business.
Well, political dogma is a very dangerous thing, Richard, when you talk about economics, as you should well know. But thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Richard Murphy, political economist, which I think is the clue, rather than a real economist, because he's got views which, quite frankly, are outmoded and ridiculously kind of old-fashioned when it comes to the public sector and the private sector sharing the wealth of an economy.